We are live from Auckland Park in Johannesburg and be ready to interact with you on issues that matter to you. Tonight, we are talking scams and how to guard against it. Why, you ask? Because it's topical. Hey, a very good evening to you, South Africa, those watching around the world. My name is Blaine Herman, and this is It's Topical. Let's welcome our central voice. Our digital audience is here. Welcome, everybody. They are sourced based on their interactions with us during the week on our topic of the week. And as always, if you have any burning questions or comments, please raise your virtual hand. But just remember that we have limited time, so I might not get everybody, but I'll do my very best to bring you into the conversation. How do we prevent sporting fraud, apparent scams in football? An article in LaLiga.com a couple of years ago talked about the International Center of Sport Security, warning of a rapid growing scam in the world of football. Now, the article says it involves people posing as player agents, some of whom adopt the identities of well-known agents in order to trick young players by offering them trials at big clubs in exchange for money. How prevalent is this now in South Africa? We will discuss. But listen, it's important to note, and this must be stated categorically, that not all trials, scholarships, agents are fake. Not the case at all. There are good men, women, organizations out there that are trying to nurture talent and change lives, putting the well-being of your children at the forefront. It's just that some parents have raised issues of possible dubious persons who are allegedly trying to take advantage of their children. So we are trying to provide some insight in terms of spotting fake from real. That is the aim of tonight's program, which leads us to our question of the week. And we're asking you, how can we prevent soccer agents from taking advantage of young hopefuls? Walk with me while we get ready for the roundup. Please send us your comments at It's Topical SABC. You can also give us a call on 011-714-5958. We would love to hear your thoughts on this matter. If you have any experience, it's all about bringing it to the fore. How do we get to that better place here in South Africa? Now, time for your roundup. All right, it's one of the most topical stories of the past week, that brawl at the press conference held by one of the factions of the Congress of the People. COP's media briefing was marred by chaos after some party members stormed in, trying to stop the party's leader, Mosiuoa Lekota, from speaking to journalists. And it started out as an ordinary media briefing conducted by COPE leader Mosiuoa Lekota. He was clearing his stance on his suspension, which was announced by COPE's Deputy President Willie Madisha earlier this week. But his address was abruptly disrupted as three men entered the room trying to hinder him from addressing the media. Here is what Mosiuoa Lekota had to say following that. Have a look.
My term of office as President of the Congress of the People would end at the end of this term of office, because our Constitution provides that an individual may occupy the term of office, or rather the position, the presidency, if they have served 2 terms. And this being the position that would be the end of my 2nd term of office, unless the party decides otherwise.
All right, back to our main topic of the night. For many young soccer players, football is more than a leisurely sporting activity. Many have aspirations of becoming a professional player and making it to the highest stages, international stages we're talking about. However, there are dangers that these young and aspiring footballers face. Thulani Cele, a soccer player from Umlazi, Durban, was initially reported to be missing in Georgia after going through trials. He was then found to have been detained in that country. Take a look.
African young footballers dream to play football in European countries, just like Sadio Mane, Samuel Eto'o, Mo Salah, and many others. Thulani Cele, a 22-year-old soccer player from Umlazi in Durban, had also hoped to break into international football in Europe. With the help of a soccer agent, Thulani left South Africa for Georgia on the 9th of April this year, under the impression that he was going for soccer trials at a club called Gagra FC.
He's been to Nedbank, he's been to Sundowns, that youth club. He's also been playing for Amazulu. Babuake took that job of finding him a soccer club. They came to Joburg last year saying they found a coach who was willing to groom Thulani, or who was willing to put Thulani in, in one of the soccer teams. That they called me. I think, wow, I mean, good news. They've managed to get a team or to find trials for Thulani, and it's overseas in Georgia. The following day, I took him to the airport. We arrived at the airport waiting for a coach. We called him. Now, what started for me to be a red flag was when we called him, because we were waiting for a coach at the airport to bid Thulani farewell, and so that Nama can even see him and meet him. So coach said, he was asleep first of all, and he said, I thought your flight was in the evening. I'm like, wow, okay. So, I mean, at that time, there was nothing to do because he was about to board, and, I bid to Thulani farewell, and it was cool, it's fine.
However, upon arrival in Georgia the next day, her aunt says he discovered it was all a scam. In one of the numerous times he communicated with his family back in South Africa, Thulani sent a voice note complaining of the harsh conditions he was facing in Georgia and the supposed agent's unending demands for money.
Because lo muntu beyakwatile nje izolo. Ngiyakwatile, but as soon as ngimnikeza le madlana le ngimnikeza engwazela ukuthi ngiyithole, because bese ngangithembi nami. Cha mhlawumbe imali ngiphethe ifike, then safika airport yashintsheka ke le enye ngiyabuya. Waqala ke wabangcono.
Cele was once a player for Amazulu under-17 team. The club spokesperson, Ronnie Muroka, says at the club, Thulani was a hard-working and a respectful player.
No, he was determined, he was hard-working, he was looking forward to make it in the big league. He was very respectful. A player that, as a coach, as an official, you easily develop a friendship and a connection. Yeah, Thulani used to play for Amazulu under-17. He was one of the players that the teams had to come and pick. Usually, wiki or PSL clubs come and pick the players. And then what was a coincidence is that I told Thulani Guti I was going to pick him.
On the 3rd of June, the next day that Cele was meant to travel back home, he got arrested by the Georgian authorities.
At the airport, the last conversation he had with Ogogo was, they are taking my passport. After a while, he said, Nababayang Bob, the agent. I'm sorry to say he's useless. He just sold Ingane to, and now we were trying also to find Uguti, what was it that he benefited.
The Department of International Relations and Cooperation says South Africa does not have an embassy in Georgia. However, they are making all efforts to repatriate him.
We are aware of his case. We are in touch with his family. We are equally concerned like the family. Without the benefits of concrete and credible information, I cannot conclusively say that he was scammed. But if you arrive in a country and you don't have legal documents that comply with immigration laws, you will get arrested. Ambassador Groenewald, who is the one accredited to Georgia, has made contact with the authorities requesting, and this is how it's done, in terms of diplomatic protocols, to request consular visit access to this South African, so that we determine all of these questions that you're asking. What is he accused of? Why is he arrested? What is he being charged with? And then how else can he be helped?
Meanwhile, the agent known as Coach Baggio, who organized Cele's trip to Europe, refuses to comment, saying he'll only speak at the right time. Ndede Ramshwana, SABC News.
And thank you very much indeed for that report. We're going to be in conversation with Thulani's aunt in a short while, so stand by for that conversation. You know the drill by now, my brothers and sisters. This program gives you a voice as we reflect on the big stories. So tonight's word on the street comes from Hatfield in Pretoria. This is what you had to say on this issue.
Hey bro, what do you writing to Thulani Cele?
Yeah, what happens to Thulani Cele is very unfair, as this thing of our brothers being exported to other countries and they are being scammed there. It's not very fair.
I've paid someone to go overseas, promise me these things, you know, then you just get there and it's actually just like, not even a child, but just the experience that you went overseas to play for this team and then you come back. If the players are disappearing that side, then obviously it could mean that there is something suspicious going on.
These days you can't trust anybody. Like everything is a scam now. If you want to be a big football star, you need to start somewhere, and you need to always be with someone you can trust. You can't just trust somebody who comes out of nowhere and just decide to go with him just because they promised you that life, because people lie.
I think, in my view, a responsibility of our state to ensure that it continues to educate young people on issues of cyber threats that are available to the general public.
Something out on a lead internship and whatsoever, but check or legit because like didn't kidnapping or snacks outside.
People know that young people are vulnerable because of this kind of opportunities, that they want to, you know, succeed in their different path of careers. The reason why we are always saying that young people must be given opportunities is to avoid such scheming programs, especially on social media. Can at least the government try to assist bringing back this particular young person so that he can continue with life?
All right, that's what you had to say with regard to this matter. Let's take a look now at some quick facts around human trafficking in sport. The following extracts are, let's bring it up for you here. They are from the University of Nottingham research and was conducted between April and June 2021. The research relied on secondary resources to grasp an understanding, one would say, of current evidence on the trafficking of people in sport. And this was to set the priorities for future investigations and actions. So this is what it had to say with regards to the context of trafficking in sports. Now, the sale of young athletes across national boundaries and for profit. Important to note that a new form of child slavery. You know, when you hear this and when you link it to sport, it's a scary thing. It leaves players in a precarious legal position. Now, when we look at trafficking of athletes within football, young players pay agents or intermediaries purporting to have contacts with professional clubs. Players obtain an opportunity for trial with a club although it involves degrees of exploitation. Now, we're going to discuss to what degree is these exploitations. Now, give you context with regards to human trafficking. Occurs in most cases with regards to what we're talking about. The interest from a foreign club is bogus. The intermediary abandons the player on arrival in the destination. This is often after taking the player's documentation and money. Once the precarious nature of the situation is realized, the player is often said to be too ashamed to return home. Such a sad thing. They remain in the destination country illegally without any means of subsistence. So that is according to research we picked up. But a context research there. Now, back in 2014, was it? I think it was. Yes, it was. Already, according to an article on LaLiga.com, the International Center of Sports Security recommended that clubs and national associations warn people that if a player is asked to pay for a trial at a club, it is not a real offer. That's according to that article. And also, the recommended that players are advised to contact the club themselves to make sure that the offer is real. Let's discuss what this all means. What's the state of play? Follow me. Let's bring in some of the better minds. Here we have Preetesh Sewraj, who is social media and innovation analyst. We also have Nonhlanhla Shongwe, who's Thulani's aunt. Thank you very much indeed to both of you. Our digital audience is here once again. We're going to touch base with all of you in a short while. Stand by. To you, Nonhlanhla, first of all. You heard that insert that Ndede did around your nephew. When was the last time you spoke to him?
The last time we spoke to him was on June 3rd, when he was about to board the flight from Georgia in Tbilisi to come back home. So what he said was, they just took my passport and I'm waiting on the line. And then after a couple of minutes, he then said, he texted and said, well, they are arresting me. So that was the last time we spoke to him.
Right.
And fast forward to that, we then received, because remember at this time we didn't know what had happened. He just told us that he was arrested. We didn't know why, for what. And then a month after we had then realized or gotten the information from DIRCO that he has been arrested for allegedly taking somebody's cell phone. So then he sent us a letter that he written. We assume he wrote the letter from prison, and then he was just telling us what he needed. But now what was weird, of which, I mean, in as much as we say he wrote the letter, but he didn't tell us about what is happening. He states there what is going on, what's going to happen. He was just basically asking for things, asking for money, for us to send him money. So we really are not sure what is happening.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's currently arrested.
Yes.
Have you reached out to authorities in Georgia to find out what's the next process? When is he appearing in court with regards to those charges?
We have tried. The big problem is that there is language barrier.
Yeah.
When I say language barrier, we've reached out to the police. We have even reached out to, there is a lawyer there, a state-paid lawyer that was assigned to him. So how we got to know about that information was via DIRCO. So we've got a number that we've been trying to, I've been trying to speak to this lawyer. However, I mean, they don't even understand, let alone when you call them. So you try SMSing, we try WhatsApping, but they can't tell you anything. They just write in Georgian language, which you can't read.
My understanding is that South Africa doesn't have an embassy in Georgia, but Georgia has an embassy here in South Africa. Our producers reached out to that embassy and they sent the following statements. I think we have it. Let's put it up full screen so I can, the viewers can have a look at it. This is from the Pretoria, Georgian embassy regarding its topical invite, and it reads, the matter is in the court of law. Due process is followed. All human rights and procedural rights are upheld, they say. All necessary communications are done through diplomatic channels. No more comment can be made on this matter by us further. We rely on your understanding of this position. We thank you for your understanding, sir. When you hear that, what is the family's next step now? Are you getting any assistance, enough assistance from DIRCO in order to pursue this matter?
I will tell you we are not getting enough assistance. And the reason why I'm saying this is because we reached out to DIRCO when this thing first started. And to us as family, it seems as if we get a response or actions from DIRCO whenever we take this matter to the media. You know, I'm saying this because this is the third time we're doing it, and we have just received an email from DIRCO. Only after these things, they know that I'm going to the media now regarding this issue. So in terms of them giving us assistance, they come back to say they are following up. The last information we got, the email we got from them was they had said they will send an official, because I believe they needed to send somebody to see Thulani. That has never happened, or that has not yet since happened. So the last communication, they said, can we just give them time? Remember, initially they had told us that Thulani will be detained on a I don't know what they call pre-trial detain for 2 months. So we allowed, you know, the law to take its course, and we gave them the 2 months. That was, remember, 3rd of June. So it was after 2 months, which was 3rd of August, we then reached out, what is happening, what's going to happen. So they don't come back to us and tell us, so Thulani will be trialed or will be detained for 3 years, or that's the information we need. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing this if we know what's going on. And number 2, we only want somebody who can just go there and see Thulani, because from where we're sitting, we only know that he's been detained, but nobody has really can vouch and say, yes, we've seen him.
So this was a person-to-person meeting.
Yes.
Then they said, okay, Thulani, we've got a deal for you. Come up. Is that how it was?
Yes.
I'm simplifying it, but
yes, no,
basically
definitely it was person to person.
We reached out to that particular agent. The person said that they're not commenting now, only waiting until the right time. So bear that in mind. Preetesh, when you hear about this was a person-to-person issue, but these things happen on social media, isn't it? Some of your experiences and thoughts on this?
Yeah, so obviously what's happening right now in the social media platform, it's becoming quite sophisticated in terms of the level of crime. And yes, some of the crime is initiated on social media and then goes offline to actual individuals who are part of it. But the reality of the situation that we have right now, as technology has advanced, as there's been a growth in the space, the scammers who are out there have also advanced their methods in which to be able to convince you of the reality of the scam that they put ahead of you. And obviously nothing is as good and nothing is as reliable as having a human being face-to-face, or having communication from direct email accounts that appear to be linked to clubs, organizations that you believe are real. So unfortunately, the reality is that even experts at this point sometimes are in situations where you are not able to adequately look at a piece of social media content or digital content and say, this is fake.
I want to talk a bit about the do's and don'ts and things that you can recognize that people can say, hey, hang on, this is dubious. We have that clip from Kaizer Chiefs from DIRCO. Let's play it.
An unfortunate case like Mr. Cele's case highlights the importance of the advice that we often give to South Africans who are traveling overseas for whatever reason, either for pleasure, for business, for studies, or any other reason, that it's absolutely critical for them to inform the Department of International Relations and Cooperation, either our headquarters here in Pretoria or any of our embassies. So if you arrive in country A, find out if there's a South African embassy, inform them of your presence and the purpose of your visit. They will give you information about the do's and don'ts, depending on the purpose of your visit. But secondly, it's important for us to know, because in cases where you find yourself in situations of distress, that there's a natural disaster or anything happens to you, we're able to locate you and offer you the necessary consular assistance. Case, if, for example, and I'm not saying this is the case, if you were scammed and you arrive in a country where people who brought you there seek to exploit you, we're able to pick it up just based on conversations and advise you on what to do.
Kaizer Chiefs, look, important advice, isn't it? Knowing that before the person embarks on the trip is vital. 011-714-5958. If you have similar stories to share, if you've gone through similar experiences, please let us know. 011-714-5958. Let's take it to our digital audience. I'll bring them in, get your thoughts. Warren, you're from Pro Athlete Management Agency. When you hear stories like what Nhlanhla Shongwe talks about regarding Thulani Cele, your thoughts, you come across a lot of these stories?
Good evening, Blaine, and good evening to your viewers. Yes, definitely. I come across a lot of these stories, and me being in the industry, a lot of my clients, they get contacted by, scammers, and, what the agent should have done in the first place was to verify, he should have done his due diligence before sending the player, should have made contact with the club and make sure, that this is a legit thing, and this thing is real. The player on his part hasn't done anything wrong, because there was an agent that was dealing with the club on his behalf, apparently.
Yeah.
So yes, we do get a lot of this on a daily basis, where players get contacted via social media.
Yeah.
They get fake invite letters, but it's all up to you as a player to do your due diligence, to make sure that what has been offered to you is real. And I can offer my assistance to a lot of players out there, because I've come across a lot of these fake invite letters. It seems like there's a syndicate targeting African-based players. They know the players are desperate, and that's where they catch them and exploit them. So yeah, there is definitely a problem, and South African Football Association, as well as FIFA, we have to sit down and try and prevent these things from happening in the future. Yes,
we did invite Safa onto the program. Unfortunately, they weren't available. Velile, SABC Sport, you travel the continent. You hear these stories around the African continent?
Good evening, and also good evening to everyone who's watching, and also to the rest of the panel as well. Look, Blaine, I think the issue here is, as Warren also puts it, an element of desperation, and sometimes you have to understand that these are talented young boys. I mean, someone like Thulani who went through a platform like Nike, in fact, like the Nedbank Cup, on a program, very close to getting a run at professional level. So he kind of looks at this opportunity as an opportunity for him to be introduced to big-time football. But also, it's not just a South African problem. It's a general African problem, where most African footballers see an opportunity to also play in Europe. But I think the difficult part here is, these are these obscure countries. If you look at Georgia, you look at Finland, you look at Kosovo, this is where all these things are happening. But most importantly, also an element of regulation as well. Because when you have agents who are not regulated, it results in problems like this. And this is why FIFA in the past has also been running programs to kind of bring awareness to issues like this, human trafficking and all these things, because this is how it goes about. So I think it's unfortunate that SAFA is not here, because this also calls for regulation of agents. Who do you call an agent? How do they identify themselves to not only the players, but also to the family? So that if we're talking about someone who's played a role in getting a player leaving these shores, there can be a way of making that person accountable, like Baggio now, who's giving you this kind of a comment. Because if an agent has made sure that a player leaves these shores for Europe in this fashion, and this is what is happening, that person needs to be responsible. But when there's no regulation, we end up in a situation like this.
You did mention two things that I want to touch on. The person that was involved in this, remember we did reach out to them and they said they will comment at the right time. You also mentioned Nedbank, Iona. We did also reach out to Nedbank. We got a statement from them. I'll just read it very quickly to you. This is what Nedbank had to say. Nedbank has noted media reports pertaining to Kiona Team Search graduate Thulani Cele. We fully support the efforts to ensure that the matter is resolved to ensure his safe return. We are, however, not in a position to comment on the issue as the Nedbank Yona team search was concluded back in 2019. Nedbank has had no involvement, association, or relationship with the parties concerned beyond this date, and we understand that the matter is with the authorities and are hopeful that a solution will be reached. That's a statement from Nedbank. Let's bring in Munya from Worldwide Scholarships. And I understand that your organization is a multifaceted global sports, arts and academic organization. It's a placement agency. When you hear stories like Thulani Cele, does it ring a bell? Do you deal with this a lot? What's the telltale signs in terms of weeding out which is fake, which is real?
First and foremost, thank you for inviting us as a reputable source of information. We do hear many of these kind of stories in the space of sports. Our organization obviously has begun with the link of talent to universities, reputable universities worldwide. And through our relationships, we have diligently put together relationships with reputable academies as well as top flight club systems throughout the world.
How do you make sure that it's reputable, Munya?
Well, reputable, they need to be listed club. For instance, with our organization, we are in link with the AC Milan youth system, whereby through the technical center in Milan, we are able to take young players in there, and if they're good, they are able to be linked with multiple Italian opportunities. And then we've got links in Spain where you, again, have a reputable academy that reaches out to reputable clubs. I think the situation that we're dealing with here is that, Africa does not have enough eyes on the talent. And because there's not enough eyes on the talent, a lot of talent falls through the cracks because most top players don't sometimes even play on the national team. So you have a situation now where kid knows he's good or they perform very well, but they don't have right information on how to take their talent to the next level. And, from our standpoint as Worldwide Scholarships, we try our best to educate first. But also to open the door for the youngsters to be able to go across to, like I said, from reputable platforms, because the platform is where you get to showcase your talent.
Right.
I would like to just also talk about the point of players paying to go across. With us especially and other institutions, I would not say that paying to go across is wrong because remember, the clubs, unless they themselves choose you, are not going to send you a plane ticket, etc. But they will send you an invitation letter. And I think the invitation letter, and I heard Mr. Schwartz at the beginning talking about he's seen a lot of fake ones. I think it's people like that can assist to sift through those kinds of things. But the embassies themselves, when you get your visa, how did the kids get their visas? Because you can't just fly from Africa to Europe. You have to get a visa. So you need to go through the right, the visa institutions should be able to vet the right and call. They usually
And that visa application happens here in the country that it's not necessarily in the country that you are going to go to, correct? You do your visa here.
Yeah, it's supposed to happen here. I mean, it's supposed to happen here. And I mean, each embassy will either have its own embassy or an agency that's working on that visa process. But the documentation needs to be crystal clear and invitation letters of what it is that you're going to that country for. So, these are the things that need to be very, very carefully looked at.
Right. Munya, thank you very much. We'll come back to you in a short while. Preetesh, I just want to bring you in before we go to Kempton Park, where Makeketla Motlabe is standing by with a person that says they've been a victim. In terms of social media and us being mindful about what we put out there, it can be very dangerous, isn't it, in terms of what we share?
Yeah, it can be, because what happens is, remember, as you share on social media, anyone who has access to your accounts, and again, you look at the multiple accounts, having access to those, they can form an idea in terms of who you are, your connections, your interests. You may be able to say, I want to play in a particular country. All of this helps them build a profile. Remember, these scammers are very, very sophisticated. And ultimately, everything you share goes into their investigation, their database, into understanding who you are and what's the perfect bait to get you to fall for their scam.
All right. We're going to talk more about do's and don'ts, but I want to take you now to Kempton Park in the East Rand, where my colleague Mark Ketlamotlabe is with a mother who says she's a victim of the very subject that we're talking about today. Mark, a very good evening to you. Tell us more.
Yeah, good evening to you, Blaine. I mean, it's a story of devastation, a story of fake player agents and scouts who continue to sell dreams, which in turn become nightmares for parents of these young footballers. And here in Kempton Park, we are in Mnube's family, where, as you can see in front of us, a lot of medals. I just counted them. I think they're just over 30. These are medals of Afika Chaoke, a 16-year-old footballer who acquired all this. He won all these medals and these trophies from grade 1. He's now in grade 10. So I'm sitting here with his mother, who was watching that discussion there, and she was just shaking her head, saying, how could this happen? Because she's also a victim, Blaine. She's just going to talk to us about how it all came about, especially because she was scammed, I think almost 20,000 Rand in 2019, when Afika was supposed to go to UK. Tell us more about that.
Good evening. It all started with Afika winning the provincial colors in football. After that, there were camps arranged and tournaments between teams out of the province. And it was in Limpopo. It happened, teams from Benoni, from Polokwane, from all over. But what they did, they created Team A and Team B from those guys who had got the provincial colors. At the end, when the Africa's team was Team B and they came second, what happened at the end after they've given the awards, when I think about it now, that was a way of luring us and misleading us as parents. They gave awards, and at the end, there was an announcement that we have selected so and so, and they'll be going to UK, But if parents can afford to send their kids and be exposed to such opportunity, they are more than welcome to join those kids. Believe you me, we were in numbers. And of course, we went ahead, started preparing, and they gave us the breakdown. But the funny part, they never gave us the destination, the team, where the kids will be sleeping and stuff like that. And that raised red flags. So going forward, as the times were nearing, we are starting to ask now, where are the kids sleeping? Which team are they playing with? We're asking questions that also is going to help us as parents to book ourselves, because I needed to go. I wasn't going to send my child alone. So we stopped. Before we even knew, maybe after 2 days, when most of us as parents were asking these questions, the trip was canned and gone.
At the time, you had already paid money.
I had paid 19, almost 20,000. And I was just left to pay the last tranche, which I was holding back on because now it was not clear what was happening.
Earlier off air, you talked about the struggles of putting together this money to pay for all this paperwork at Home Affairs. You also set up a stall in the streets just to sell, socks in order to to make your son happy?
Yes. I'm a single parent mom. I hustle a lot. I do have a full-time job, but as we all know, our salaries cannot give us additional things that we want. So I started a Magunya business. I started selling happy socks, and that money that I was paying was part of the selling.
You also took a loan?
Yes, at work. I went and had a discussion with management. And generally, when you ask for a loan, educational loan, there is a certain amount that you get. And yet, if it's any other thing, if it's miscellaneous, it will just be a certain amount as well. But educational loans are more generally. So I narrated the story to management, and the HR executive manager said, you know what, this is for schooling purpose, and this child is our own, so we can extend this help to him. Yeah. But that all failed. I mean, the vultures out there took it away.
And so they helped you secure the loan in order to pay for your child so-called trip to UK. But here's the thing, you managed to speak to your cousin who is in UK, who also assisted you in realizing this red flag. There is a huge impact here after you realized that this was a scam. How were you affected? I just want to, after this, ask you about how Africa is doing.
You have a knot in your heart and in your stomach. Every parent wants their children or their child to achieve their dreams. And you want to be part of the dream. And knowing Africa, look at this. He dedicates to it. So as a mother, you want to help him. Emotionally, psychologically, health-wise, financially, it was a knock. But sometimes you just have to move on.
And where is he now? How is he doing, Africa?
Well, Africa is lucky. He's a very resilient boy. I also help him a lot as his mother. I teach him a lot about mindset. I always teach him that in everything that has failed, it's never wasted. You learn. But he's a child. Remember, he'll show emotions, he'll show sadness. I know sometimes he will cry, but he's a boy that doesn't like to show emotions. He's a strong boy. He's fine now. He's doing very well. He's still excelling in his sports.
Absolutely. Bongiwe Mngube there. She is Africa Chaoke's mother. She told me that throughout his schooling period, ever since the primary schooling period, coaches were fighting for him. And this here, Blaine, tell that story. They were fighting for him. They wanted him to be under them because he is a focused young man in football and athletics. But then there comes a time when scammers want to destroy this young boy's child or these young people streams rather, and it all affects parents. As you can see here, she's devastated, but she has taught her son that this is a life lesson. It will teach you to be vigilant in future.
The pain I see in her eyes, I see it also in Nhlanhla Shongwe's eyes as well, Thulani Cele's aunt, and to many other parents, probably the same as well. What are the lessons that we can learn? Conversation continues after this. All right, let's continue the conversation. We're lucky enough to have Junior Khanye, former Kaizer Chiefs player. He is here with us. Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Junior. You heard the painful story. You're sitting next to Nhlanhla Shongwe, Thulani Cele's aunt, who is, we understand, detained in Georgia. We understand, you probably heard the story. You've, as a former professional player, gone through the ranks. When you hear stories like that, what sort of advice can you give parents?
Yeah, let me start with agents or business managers. Can they respect these parents, especially parents, because without them, these players, they will never find this young talent. I think their parents know these kids more than agents. So you can't have these agents whereby they meet these boys wherever Eastgate, Southgate, Israel Mall, without knowing where they stay. So that's not respect, but that's what is happening. So I'll give the advice to the parents that there's nothing that is lost from their child, irrespective of what is happening. I've been through a lot, but there's always God. I think God and your ancestors knows you more than anyone. And your parents, I believe it's part of that ancestor, a living ancestor. So they must keep on supporting the child. Tell the child that it's not over. Whatever, any situation that they're facing, I mean, they must make example with people like me, whereby at the age of 21, age of 17, I play one of the biggest team, Kaizer Chiefs. 1 9-time man of the match in a row. It's never happened in football. One discover of the Kaizer Chiefs, one rookie of the year. Now it's young player. But at the age of 21, left, I didn't have a team. Because of a lot of things. I believe I work with so many agents. If I'm saying so many, 5 or 4, many. But if I can tell you with that, I need to be honest. I can point only 2, 3 that they've been good to me. And that plays a part in my career because I was a bit disturbed. Because some of them, they come to us, they listen to the vibe. That maybe you on song by that season, after everything, probably when you get the injury or when you've got the problem with your team, they start moving away. And remember, they're managing so many talent in different teams. And you alone, if you messed up, and then you will be out easily. And it's only your parent that you must go back and take care of you. Unfortunately, so they must just guide these kids that look at Junior to. Remember, as I'm saying, God is not stupid. God is there for anyone, not only kids. I was down and out, as I'm saying, but thanks God, the talent that I'm using now. I'm a football analyst. At DIRCO TV, brand ambassador for World Sports Betting as well. My career is still continuing. Under football, I'm not doing other job. So the knowledge is still there. A pity that I'm not playing professional football. So they must speak to these kids that, look, nothing is lost. Go back to the drawing board, cut some of the things that you were doing. And
don't be dejected, right?
Please. It's a learning curve to you. Now you must learn. The talent you are not borrowed. Any platform that we'll get, will be there to guide you as parents. So we'll manage any finance for you.
Thereby for the grace, isn't it? There but for the grace we go. And sometimes someone told me you have to go through a test to get to your best, and maybe this is part of the process, right? I'll come back to you, Junior, in a short while. I want to go to Ikareng, Sowetan Sports editor. Are you hearing the stories in Ikareng that go beyond the headlines? Talk to us about your experience in terms of covering some of these stories.
Good evening. I think my colleagues have covered the base on this, but I would like to point out that football is very expensive. Grooming a player from a young age, buying soccer boots, and they grow older, you need new clothes, new boots, and things like those. But parents should not pay for any child. That's what we need to emphasize. Once somebody says, bring your boy here and you must bring so much so that we can see if they have the talent, I think that should be a red flag on itself. Unfortunately, these are happening, as colleagues pointed out earlier. These are happening because of social media and the desperation among kids. Parents don't want to be seen as if they are not supportive, so they would go to extra miles to support their kids. And unfortunately, they fall for this kind of scams. So I would like to caution parents to always look at what you are supposed to bring. If they don't say bring only your soccer boots and playing kit, then you should know that they should do due diligence and research and see if this is not
right.
The scale.
Thank you very much indeed. Moses, to you and then to Michael. Your thoughts, Moses?
Yeah, thanks, Blaine, and evening to my fellow panelists as well as the viewers for SABC. Look, my story is more or less similar to that one of my mother to Africa Chauke. But perhaps what one can share is that in our case, so in my case, the due diligence was performed, maybe just to respond to what Warren said earlier on. The presentations were done and all that, we paid, and that was the last time we saw this company. A fraud and theft case was opened with SABC, and that was the last time we heard about it. So perhaps one would say that the law agencies should also play a part, perhaps in the next interviews, if we can bring them on board to say, how do we then open a case and provide all the necessary information as way back as 2019 and up to date till today. When you make a follow-up, you don't get a concrete answers from the law abiding, I mean, from the law, right. The police, if I may say. So yeah, that was such an unfortunate team of about 15 players were selected. Right. We paid a deposit, visas were applied, visas were granted, yes, in this country. But when it was the day to or the month to leave the country, after flights were also paid, then the company just disappeared with the money. So it's very unfortunate, but perhaps if the law agencies can also assist to find a way of getting rid of the scammers in football.
And if it takes that long, as how you explain it, Moses, not only is it taking the toll on the parent, but also those kids, with desperate hearts and passionate hearts who want to get on with their lives and pursue their dreams, but they can't because this is holding them up. Michael Mthembu, your thoughts? If you can unmute, Michael. There we go.
Hey, yes, good evening. My story, it's the same story. It's a UK story. It happened on the 2019 and everything, it's a mess. If I can tell you this now, you won't believe. My son that time was in primary. He was 13 years old. Now he's 16 years old. And I think last month, you won't believe this, he got another letter inviting him to Germany and Netherlands. I got the letter. I even shared this story to one of your colleagues yesterday. Yeah, it's one of those things.
And you suspect that this letter is fake? Is that what you say? The second one?
You know what? I emailed these people. I told them that I'm a victim. Then I'm suspicious. I don't know what to say about it, but I'm scared. Yeah, I'm really scared.
Yeah. Michael, thank you very much indeed for sharing. Preetesh, red flags from the stories that you heard when we're dealing with social media. What are they?
I think the first thing you have to do is unfortunately doubt everything. And I think the take that Michael has is right. You look at it, and as legitimate as it appears, you've got to doubt it because that's the start of your due diligence process.
I was just mentioning, I see the pain in your eyes. How's the family doing now, and what's the next step for you?
The family is not doing well, especially the father. Remember when this thing started, the father was sort of like a manager for Thulani. So they together, the dad and Thulani, went and saw and met up with the agent. So he's been part of this. So somehow he feels he's responsible for this. So he's really not taking this thing very well, you know, because at times, I mean, he can't even speak about it because he still blames himself for sending the child there, you know. And I also want to speak on what my colleague touched on, that, you know, some of these things are, you vet them, you trust them, you know. The fact that the agent, it's somebody that we knew, you know. Sometimes you see the red flags, but then you just turn a blind eye because it's somebody that is known, somebody that is known at Kiona, you know, somebody that you've been working with for years. So how can you not trust them, you know?
Just final thoughts,
yeah,
Junior?
It's very shocking. Very, very shocking, honestly, if I have to say, but these things are real. And they're killing so many souls. Because it's when the child starts doing the wrong things. There's this thing called frustration in football, whereby, actually in life generally, remember this is a human being, a young boy, with a bright future ahead of him, with ambitions, and now somebody comes promise something it doesn't fulfill. And I don't think you have to pay for a talent. I don't think there's something like that you need to pay for a talent. But as I'm saying to you, we tend to trust. There's many, as the mom said now, and that there's you sometimes find a person that you know the person for a while, and then you tend to trust. He's working with Kiona, he's promising the world, and then you tend to put your heart there, and even you tell your child everything is there. But now my advice, another thing that I will say to these, I'm saying to parents and these kids, they need to balance school and football. Even my kids. I've got the academy that I'm running, and I don't want anybody to manage those kids.
Jenny, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much. We've run out of time. Digital audience, as always, pleasure having you, Preetesh, Junior. Thank you very much indeed. Before we go, here's my take. My heart goes out to parents who only want the best for their children, to give them the opportunities that we never had. Also, the young hopefuls who only ask for a chance, an opportunity to prove themselves in whatever sporting codes they feel passionate about. I have a soccer-loving 11-year-old son. I see and hear in his eyes and in his voice the passion he has for the sport. I myself share his passion. But if passion drives you, let reason hold the reins. Ben Franklin. In this day and age, we have to be vigilant. Take nothing for granted. Triple check everything. Call the club yourself. Make sure the offer is legit, because someone once told me the rule of thumb is if the offer looks and sounds too good to be true, probably is. Sad, but sometimes true. That's how we wrap things up. Until next week, take care. Bye-bye.